Sometimes you have double cream that is about to go off or you don't know what to do with it. This is the perfect idea, beautiful and delicious homemade butter. It also gives you half a jar of buttermilk, so you cannot go wrong with this recipe. It is the one ingredient and it will be the double cream. Often I have bought double cream or I get a food order and it arrives and it is the day of expiry or the day before, and I just know that I'm not going to use all of that cream up in that amount of time. So by making butter, you can really reduce that waste and panic that you might have. I am going to be using my stand mixer today, so pop the cream in your stand mixer with a whisk attachment. If you don't have a stand mixer but you have a handheld one, I would suggest using that. And if all else fails, you can use a bit of arm strength and a handheld whisk. You will see that once you start whisking, the butter will really thicken up to this cream-like state. Scrape down your bowl and ensure that all of the cream is now getting mixed up evenly. It is this stage that is one before your butter turns into that glorious yellow colour. Within minutes you will see that the colour goes from this white cream to this yellow. Now I will show you how white it was on my spatula when I scraped the bowl down in comparison to the yellow that is now in the bowl. It is a very quick transformation when you are using a stand mixer, but it will require a lot of arm strength if you're going to do this by hand. It is well worth doing, and I recommend that you make your butter at least once in your life just for the experience and the taste. Continue to scrape the bowl down to ensure that all of the ingredients are mixed. You can't really go wrong with this recipe. Keep an eye on it, but allow it to mix in the background, or just make sure that you are waiting for that butter and buttermilk consistency. It is at this point you will now have butter and buttermilk. It is absolutely incredible how quickly this happens, but keep an eye on it because, as you will see, it does splash everywhere if you don't pay enough attention. Once your butter has formed like this, mould it into a ball or a round and put it in some ice cold water. I put it in this bowl of water to allow it to set and firm up. Before doing so, try to squeeze out as much buttermilk as possible, but we are going to wash and rinse that out as well. You want to ensure that you get as much moisture, especially from the buttermilk, out as possible to preserve your butter for longer. Once your butter has firmed up in the ice cold water, I then suggest taking it over to the sink where you can really rinse out all of that buttermilk. There are lots of beautiful butter moulds and stamps that you can buy, but if you're just starting out, feel free to use the parchment paper like I am today to just mould it into a lovely block. Once you have rinsed your butter, we're then going to flatten it out and add some salt. Salt is an optional extra. I prefer my butter to have salt. I always buy the salted butter from the store, and I find that if I use salted butter all of the time in recipes and in baking recipes specifically, I will just usually leave out the salt or halve it. Once you have incorporated that salt evenly, if you are adding it, I then keep flattening and I will wipe away any extra moisture with a kitchen towel. That is the last step before it comes to moulding and shaping. There are many reasons and benefits for making your own butter. Now, I just use plain old double cream from the store today, but if you want to go one extra step, you could go for a locally sourced dairy farm to get that cream that hasn't got any additives, or any preservatives in it. Organic is always best if your budget allows, and of course homemade is always best if time allows. Try not to handle your butter too much, otherwise it will become too soft and sticky and start to melt. So I was on the verge of overworking this butter. It wasn't a problem, and it won't be a problem if it happens to you. You just then want to move on to the stage of shaping and putting in the fridge. I put the butter in the fridge just to firm up a little bit, but I often will keep it on the counter in a butter dish for easy use, especially when making sandwiches. I use this parchment paper to form the round. It won't stick, and I find it a lot easier to keep it in there for the time being. But as I said, you can get some really creative butter molds, and I would love to invest in some now that I've started to make my own butter regularly. I think that homesteading is a lovely way of life. It is also a hobby, and it's something that you should just do when time allows. You don't have to hold yourself to any high expectations to make homemade at all times. So when you get the chance, and if you enjoy it, try new things and enjoy yourself. I wasn't quite sure how to secure the wrapping, so I thought I would put a rubber band at each end, and that just worked fine. I will then put it in my butter dish and reuse the rubber bands anyway. Don't forget your buttermilk. Pour that into a jar and store that in the fridge, and that can be used on so many recipes. So I'm sure that now homemade butter is going to be a regular in my kitchen. I am going to have to start finding and making some amazing buttermilk recipes to match. As you'll see in a second how soft and delicious this butter will be on a sandwich. I hope that you've had time to take 5 minutes out or have me on in the background whilst you do jobs. I'd love to know if you sit and watch these videos or if you have them on in the background. I often always have a YouTube video on. It's often when I'm doing jobs and I can just keep glancing over, but YouTube is something that I feel brings me so much comfort and joy. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and please again let me know if you make it. All recipes are in the description. I hope that you have a good day, and I will see you on the next one.